So to get us started, it's truly my distinct pleasure to introduce the head of the world's largest integrated energy and chemicals company. Please welcome to the stage President and CEO of Aramco, Amin Nasser.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to Raja, Lara, Alex, and your colleagues at Energy Intelligence for the opportunity to discuss the energy challenges of our time. When the history of the global energy transition is written, I believe historians will view this current period as the defining moment. A moment when the world learned the truth about the progress. The big promise was abundant, affordable, and secure energy, new jobs, and lower emissions. Instead, more than a decade later, costs are rising, grids are fragile, and emissions are not falling, even in the global north where alternatives and renewables have been most actively promoted. In the EU, industrial gas and electricity prices are 2 to 4 times higher than its main trading partners. Instead of the promised wave of green jobs and competitive industries, investors and companies are unfortunately waving goodbye. And with geopolitical, trade, and economic uncertainties compounding the situation, consumers are rightly angry as the transition hype has not been matched by reality on the ground. If the developed world is struggling with higher energy costs, let alone wholesale deindustrialization, the developing world stands no chance. And it shows why the current transition plan never stood a chance either. The targets and the base were so unrealistic and the cost too high. But while EVs, solar and wind were given star billing, the enduring role of hydrocarbon was the unwanted guest at the transition party. Yet, endure they have. Over the past decade, global primary energy demand has risen by the equivalent of around 40 million barrels of oil per day. Hydrocarbons supplied 2/3 of that growth, despite $11 trillion being spent on transition. And that's just the growth. In total, the world consumed 340 million barrels of oil equivalent daily. Hydrocarbon still supply 80% of that energy, with oil, gas, and coal continuing to break new records. So this is not even a phase down of hydrocarbon, let alone a phase out. Furthermore, this hydrocarbon resurgence highlights the limited progress of those icons of the energy transition I mentioned: EVs, solar, and wind. EVs still represent less than 6% of the global light-duty vehicle fleet, despite all the investment and subsidies. Renewables have made more progress, but face a ceiling in the grid because intermittency is their Achilles heel when the wind stops, the sun sets, or winter clouds. Without large-scale economic storage, every additional unit of solar and wind intensify grid instability, forcing the system to lean more on gas and coal. Indeed, in some places, coal still accounts for 2/3 of the power generation mix. So there are situations where the growth in EVs and electricity-driven technologies is actually adding to emissions, not reducing them. This is the less visible face of the energy transition. There are other fast-moving realities the transition will have to contend with. living standard in developing countries, especially in Asia, are rising. Growth forecasts contend that there will be many more EVs. And by 2030, the entire data center ecosystem could be consuming up to 4 times more electricity than the entire global battery EV fleet. However, welcome, this demand tsunami promises to overwhelm grids and further increase emissions. In short, much of the promised progress has not been delivered, with many unintended consequences. Thankfully, it is finally shifting the narrative in 3 key ways. First, while EVs and renewables are growing, they are not even covering demand growth and remain small in absolute numbers. While the icons of transition are still clearly stuck in first gear, hydrocarbons are largely carrying the extra load, and they remain the backbone of the global energy and the most reliable engine of prosperity. So in reality, this is not a true energy transition. It is an energy addition which requires all hands on deck. Second, this reality is why every major forecaster is revising scenarios, with oil and gas locked in for decades, which I hope is the green light for long-term investment in both. Third, even in the global north, the economic realities, technology limits, and public acceptance of the current transition plan are forcing some welcome policy U-turns. Very quiet U-turns, of course. At Aramco, our strategy reflects this realistic outlook. We are determined to remain dominant in oil thanks to a massive resource base, low cost, and one of the lowest upstream carbon intensities across the industry. We also see resilient demand, and the pressing need for long-term investment in supply is now widely accepted. So our growth potential in oil remains large. We are accelerating in gas as we have some of the world's largest reserves, including significant potential in unconventional gas. We also know that gas is the critical global shock absorber for unstable grids. It ramps up in minutes, helps steady the system, and we expect demand to continue increasing. That's why we plan to increase our sales gas production capacity by more than 60% by 2030 compared to 2021 production levels. And despite the current downturn, chemicals remain a key long-term growth area with our proven strength in both feedstock and conversion. Our existing strategy also supports deeper emission reductions. We continue to deliver efficiency improvement and are further reducing our upstream carbon and methane intensities. We are deploying AI at scale, backed by major investment in infrastructure and top talent, as well as $7 billion venture capital program. Ultimately, our focus is on value as we invest in technology deployment, AI, and digital solutions. In the last 2 years alone, we have successfully captured $6 billion of technology realized value, with another $2 to $4 billion expected this year. The same approach applies to our careful position in new energies, ready to scale up when commercially competitive. The balanced strategy is preparing us for a realistic future, delivering long-term value to our stakeholders and shareholders worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, the current transition plan has dug the world into quite a hole that will not be easy to escape from. So if Churchill were writing the history of the energy transition, he would know this is not the end, nor even the beginning of the end. But he might say that shifting the narrative from hype to reality marked the end of the digging. Because we must bridge the divergent understanding of the energy system the world needs. It is the only way to make durable progress. So it is time for a path that takes us forward, not backward, based on shared realities, so that everyone can travel together. One that welcomes more energy from all sources. One that values abundance, security, and affordability, as well as sustainability. And one that inspires us to collaborate on a global scale to deliver real progress for all. This is the realistic, balanced, and inclusive transition sweet spot the world needs. And I believe it is now within our reach. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to the Energy Intelligence Forum. Mr. Nasser, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And excellent remarks. Clearly, you wanted to focus around the energy transition, or rather the approach to the energy transition. And I have to give you some credit here, because you were the first to recognize that if the world doesn't take a pragmatic approach to the energy transition, we'd be facing all kinds of security risks in terms of energy supplies. And today we're talking about the erosion of spare capacity, lack of investment in the upstream sector, decline rates. But we'll get to that topic. I want to start off with talking about the theme of the forum this year, which is energy in the age of pragmatism. As we're all aware, that energy markets are being shaped by fragmentation, trade tensions, security concerns, lower oil prices, and sometimes official tweets. So I know this is a hard question, but how do you see all these dynamics influencing your outlook and Aramco's role?
Thank you, Amin. And fragmentation, geopolitics, and all of it, it's for energy, it's part of the landscape. We have been part of it. We have seen so many events through our history, and we have adapted to all of these things very well. For our strategy, we always make sure that we are geographically diversified in terms of where our customer base is. And so we supply to Europe, to the US, to Asia, and to the whole part of the world in terms of supply. So diversification is important. At the same time, we are also making sure through our network we have the reliability, because reliability is important. So if you look at our network at home in terms of making sure it can has enough flexibility to handle any type of events. We do have the spare capacity, we have the redundancy in our system, we do have the capability to supply through the Gulf, through the Red Sea, and we have been through so many crises in our history, and our supply was never interrupted to our customer base around the world because of the resilience that we have built as Aramco over the years. So in a world that, as you highlighted, fragmented, protectionism and geopolitics and all of it, you need to ensure that you build the resilience and the flexibility within your system. You need to have geographic diversification, and also not only in terms of supply, and this is where it is not only oil. We are big investor now in gas, and gas is growth by more than 60%, as I highlighted. We are in renewables. We are at the same time doing all of it. We are not we're looking at sustainability, and this is where we have one of the lowest intensities of 9.7 kilogram for CO2 and 0.04 for ethane. So if you compare it to the global average for the industry, it's like 1/4 in terms. So we are focused in ensuring sustainability, affordability. It is important elements in everything that we do. And that's why our cost per barrel for the last 20 years, extraction cost.
Is it $3 still?
It's still $3.
Okay.
By the way, just for information, it's $2 for oil and $1 something for gas. So when
Even
you talk
offshore,
about it,
Mr.
barrel
Nasser?
of everything, I mean,
Okay.
it's aggregate. And barrel of oil equivalent, it's $3. This is how much it costs us. It's $2 for oil. If you add to it the gas component, because gas is a little bit more expensive in BTU compared to oil for us when you extract it. So in total, for 20 years, extraction costs remain the same, capitalizing on technology and innovation and efficiency to manage the inflation and keep the costs down.
That's incredible. $2 a barrel. Very competitive. Can you remind us what is the maximum sustained capacity, still at 12 for Aramco?
Maximum sustained capacity is 12 million barrels per day.
Okay.
And by the way, when we talk about maximum sustained capacity, we can sustain it for a year with no additional cost. So we only had to bring additional rigs and whatever after 1 year to maintain it. But for 1 year, you can sustain it with no additional cost.
That's a really important point. I want to shift here a little bit and talk about demand outlook. Starting the year 2025, everyone was expecting this huge glut to happen in the market to the point where many thought that even OPEC Plus wasn't going to be able to unwind any of its cuts. I want to get your view kind of short term, what the market looks like in terms of demand, but also longer term, as we're seeing Chinese demand kind of softening, slowing down. What other markets could you make up for that slowdown in China?
You know, the fundamental is strong still. Demand is robust. We are looking at 1.1 to 1.3 million barrels per day this year. Next year, you're looking at 1.2 to 1.4 million barrels per day of additional demand. So it is robust, driven by developing countries because per capita use of hydrocarbon is very low compared to the global north. So when you talk about the global south, because of increase in population, living standards, we are confident that demand will continue to grow. And this is where the talk now and the difference tone about the need for additional investment, because at the end of the day, investment this year is like 4% below last year. And with the inflation and increase in cost, you need to really increase your investment to maintain the decline that you have in existing fields. And you know, if you look at the narratives now, they're talking about a decline of up to 6%. And at 100 million barrels, you need almost every year 6 million barrels of additional production just to maintain the current production. So if you look at economic growth, and if you look at the global south and the need for additional demand, for example, if you look at aviation today, in India, increase of 4 to 5%. In China, 8%. A lot of people look at the transport sector. They don't look at the liquid to chemical. This is where we put a lot of our investment. Liquid to chemical is increasing. 30 to 40% of the growth in demand will be from liquid to chemicals. And liquid to chemical is important because they need it for the electric vehicle. They need the carbon fiber. And as you build more of these, you need liquid to chemical. This is where our big investment in liquid to chemical and the 4 million strategy to convert 4 million barrels of our production to chemicals over the long term. But it is part of the strategy because of the need for carbon fiber, and all of this transition require more of that. So this is a demand that is ignored in terms of how much. You know, if you look at it, it used to be 15 to 16 million barrels in liquid to chemical. By 2030, it will be 20 to 21 million barrels. So there is significant growth in that area.
Absolutely, and that's why, I mean, a lot of international agencies, and I'm going to borrow a phrase that you said during your speech there, are making quiet U-turns. Instead of, you know, calling out for the phase down of fossil fuel investment, now they're calling for additional investment in the upstream sector. Going into Aramco's investment strategy, you mentioned gas, and this is an area that Aramco is going to be investing in. But what about chemicals, maintaining a spare capacity? What other areas are you looking at? LNG? So can you talk us through Aramco's investment strategy?
You know, for oil, you still have an ample spare capacity. So what we are doing in oil is basically maintaining our MSC, the 12 million barrels that we have for the production that we produce. So we do have an ample spare capacity. Gas is an area where we are looking at significant growth, and I mentioned the 60%. It is an important element of our strategy. If you look at one component, of gas, which is it's not significant in terms of the amount of gas it's delivering compared to the gas that we are producing today. Jafurah is only a 2 billion, it's unconventional. The good thing about our gas, especially the unconventional, it's rich with liquid. Jafurah alone, 2 billion of sales gas, is bringing 630,000 barrels of gas liquids and 420 million scuff of ethane, which is important for the chemical industries. This is just one segment, small segment. So our gas is rich with liquid. That's where the focus on gas. We have huge resource. Jafurah alone has more than 230 TCF.
And that project is on track.
That on track, of course. And 75 billion barrels of liquids, of resource liquids. And the Jafurah is just the beginning. It's just the beginning when you look at where our ambition in terms of unconventional gas, because of the attractiveness of the liquids associated with gas. So we are building a lot of gas projects one after the other, especially through 2030 and beyond. And of course, we are investing in liquid to chemical. Our strategy is still up to 4 million. And so far, we are almost close to 1.8 million barrels of liquid to chemical that we have. And we have other projects in the pipeline to deliver on our 4 million strategy. We are putting these in the right markets where they are using these chemicals as part of their activity to utilize the carbon fiber and all of these things. At the same time, we invest in renewables.
How about critical minerals, Mr. Nasser?
Minerals is, because of our expertise in the subsurface, we are identifying major amounts of lithium that we are going to hopefully start commercial production in 2027 of lithium. There are other minerals. We have wealth of data over 90 years. We digged a lot of holes in the ground across the concession areas. We are looking at the seismic, the data that we have collected, identifying sweet spots for minerals, strategy and expansion, and we have a partnership with Ma'adin. So you will see minerals from Aramco expanding big time in the future as we drill more wells and we explore the different part of the kingdom. At the same time, as I said, renewable, we have 12 gigawatt by 2030. We will continue to invest in the renewable, especially in the kingdom, with all the growth that we are seeing, with the grid almost going to be 50% on renewable and 50% on gas.
I want to circle back to the topic of the energy transition, and I want to talk about coal displacement versus emission reduction. There's been a lot of debate about coal's resurgence. And in recent years, I just want to see how we can think about coal in context of emission reduction strategy.
You need to stabilize the grid. You have two ways to stabilize the grid. You can build a lot of solar and wind, but you need to match it with a growth either on gas or on coal. And energy security these days is important. As Alex highlighted, certain countries, they look at what is indigenous, what is available for them, and if it is coal, they will be using coal to stabilize the grid. Because as you build more renewable, you need more base load from hydrocarbons available to balance the grid. If you put a 10 gigawatt of renewable and you put it during the day and you shut it down during the night because sun is not shining or sunset or the wind is not blowing or whatever, you need to ensure the
you have the base load basically covered.
Base load, you have to have the backbone as hydrocarbon to supply the grid. And this is where you see coal resurgence, by the way. We are close to 9 billion ton right now in coal. And I think looking at the future, coal is abundance. It's lower cost. Yes, it is higher emission, twice as much as gas in terms of emission. But, sometimes it's the mix between sustainability, affordability, and security of supply. And every country will prioritize depending on what is important for them. It could be security, then affordability, then sustainability. It could be sustainability. Then it depends on each country's, what they are looking at strategically in terms of their the way they manage their resources.
I think in terms of forecasting too, I read something recently around the use of coal. There was a forecast that by 2035 it would have been reduced to 1%, and now they're seeing a growth of 40% by 2035. So again, a lot of revisions happening on the consumption of coal. Mr. Nasser, I want to talk about AI. I mean, AI is seen as a kind of transformative force in terms of both how it will consume energy, but also how it would increase efficiency. How is Aramco harnessing the power of AI?
We are investing in AI at scale. AI is not something new. It is something that, for AI to work, because a lot of people talk about AI and they think it's a hype. For AI to work, you need the computing infrastructure. If you don't have the computing infrastructure, you cannot come and say, this year I'm going to be capturing, a lot the benefits of AI. You need to have the computing infrastructure, you need to have the talents, and you need to have the data quality. And this is something that we have in Aramco strength in all of these three. We have 90 years of data, the computing infrastructure, we built it over the years, and the talents, other than data scientists that we have in hundreds, we have build the skill of our workforce. We have more than 6,000 of our subject matter experts trained on AI. We are realizing the value. I mentioned in my remarks, between 23 and 24, we realized third-party verified $6 billion as a result of technology. Mm-hmm. Almost 50% is AI related, others is digitalization and all of that. So technology is helping. In 2025, we're looking at $2 to $4 billion. So it is very beneficial. So it is an investment in AI, but you need to have all the components available. You need to have the infrastructure, you need to have the talent, need to have to be able to capture the benefit of AI. And then, as I said, we have the use cases now. If you look at Aramco, we have between 400 and 500 use cases. Each use case in Aramco is a project. If I look at productivity, we're able to increase productivity in certain fields by twofolds. If I look at seismic, the ability to reinterpret seismic, even old seismic, and capture more resource available for production through our concession areas. AI is embedded in everything that we do. We create Aramco digital company to benefit out and create the right expertise in the company for AI. And also the kingdom is also, we are collaborating with Humane. It's an AI company that is going to be big in data centers, technology, and chips, and GPUs, and all of these in partnership with a lot of other companies around the world.
Yeah, that's right. The kingdom is investing massively in data centers. You have the land, you have affordable energy. Affordable energy, that's right. An extraction cost of $2. So.
And the talent also.
And the talent, of course. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So as a final question, as a CEO of the largest energy company in the world, what message would you like to leave us with on how to approach the energy transition?
I have been saying it for some time. We need to be realistic on time frames, in inclusivity, in a just transition that take into consideration the global north and the global south. 80% of the demand is in the global south, not in the global north. So we need to also appreciate the maturity and the different speed that this transition will take place. And we need to understand it is energy addition. You mentioned coal. It is increasing. It's not decreasing. So it is. We need to come to. Three things we need to have. It's not only sustainability. It needs to have security, and it needs to be also affordable. Mm-hmm. And for that, you need to make sure that you put the right investment, capitalizing on technology, and AI is really helping us I mentioned 20 years, extraction costs didn't go up. We benefited a lot from our investment in digitalization and technologies and all of these things. So I think we need to work together and appreciate that we need all resources available. We need solar, we need wind, we need hydrogen, we need, at the same time, all hydrocarbon sources available. The world needs more energy, not less energy, but they need affordable and secure energy while sustainable at the same time.
Mr. Nasser, thank you so much for your time. We always appreciate it and hope you can join us again next year.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.